Well. The unfortunately disappointing book of Boba Fett came out in December of 2021, and sadly, I wish it didn't.
517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Jack from the Coruscant Knights team, and today I'll be unpacking the book of Boba Fett, and why I believe it failed to live up to my expectations, and what it could have done so much better. To your surprise, from the title of the video, you may think I'm just a Star Wars hater or a Boba Fett hater. But in fact, I love the character of Boba Fett, from old legends and canon books and even the movie appearances. Not only that aside of the media, but even the actor Tamora Morrison himself is such a legend within the industry. Yet, the portrayal of him within the show left a foul taste in my mouth after watching all 7 episodes. And here is why. To fully be able to go in depth and hit all areas I feel are essential for this breakdown, I shall be splitting this video into 3 parts, thus being part 1, theme and characters, part 2, story, structure and episodes, and part 3, cinematography and filmmaking. I must say, going into this show after the Mandalorian Season 2 post-credit scene, with Boba Fett on the throne after killing Bib Fortuna in cold blood, was all the hype I needed to go into the show. Thinking that, after giving us a tease of how Boba Fett acted in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, I thought to myself, a show with Boba Fett acting like a mob boss, like something similar to The Godfather, would be an amazing character arc for the cold-blooded bounty hunter. Oh, how wrong was I. You would think after that pretty amazing opening first episode with Boba Fett finding himself within the tribe of the Tusken Raiders after escaping the Sarlacc pit like he did in the Legends, and then to find himself a family with morals after that near-death traumatic experience, I wouldn't be here making this video. Yet again, I have been disillusioned. Instead, us audiences who have been wanting a Boba Fett show or movie for years after Empire Strikes Back, but all we got was an old man who struggles to fight off any sort of low-level threat to have some excuse for him to heal in the Bacta tank, constantly dragging the supposed theme of the show, which is finding a tribe and becoming a leader. This just dragged the development of Boba through clunky, disjointed flashbacks. Keep in mind, also, I love the first episode's unique take on how Boba was saved and his relations with the tribe of the Tusken Raiders, showing a more loyal and committed friend and finding himself a place within the universe, compared to working under the arm of others. Unfortunately, the show led to the idea to simmer out and leave us with a lackluster, poorly written mess. It's just saddening seeing such a threat and menace in Empire without him barely saying any words, and then to his awesome presence within The Mandalorian, to just this downgrade and fan film-esque idea that Robert Rodriguez thought would be entertaining and intriguing, when in actuality, it's the complete opposite. We never wanted to see this. Okay, yes, Disney, I understand. Since you have got this stoic Mandalorian bounty hunter who rarely says any words and never takes off his helmet, you cannot repeat that with Boba Fett. But he was the original! Why in anyone's right mind, if you were planning to bring Boba back, to create a whole new character with exactly the same traits and morals Boba had in the old canon and OT? I simply don't get it. Disney and Robert wrote themselves into a hole with a boring, not relevant Boba, due to the collision of these two characters whose themes and developments are pretty much the same. So they had to change Boba drastically, and this was for the worst. Okay, so let's put aside the main character Boba Fett himself out for a bit and talk about the other characters very briefly. We've gotten a great deal of content with Fennec Shand and the other side characters within the show. I love Fennec. I think she's a complete badass, and the role that she does as bodyguard and partner with Boba is so good. I believe her and even Chrysanthemum was well written and was made to make sense. I refuse to mention the biker local gang that Boba hires. It's just... that's for another time. Finally, Cad freaking Bane. I loved him so much in the Clone Wars, but I think he should have stayed there now after the injustice they did to him within the show and his quick death. with his late introduction, which would have made the show more impactful having the Pikes hire him earlier. After that, I'm glad that the other cameos didn't appear, such as Bosk, otherwise I would have been completely broken in two. Ultimately, I think the executives and the writers of the show struggled to characterize and have an exciting yet different take with an older Boba who can't have the same traits as the now popular Mandalorian, which would have been completely identical. To now leaving a weird out of place mob family story by the end, which he even decides it's not for him anyway, almost retconning all 7 episodes. Since I could spend around 5 hours alone just talking about this show, I better briefly get this out of the way. Disney, please, I'm begging you now, have longer episodes. What are these 30 to 40 minute runtimes? With Star Wars properties like this, they need to be longer for world building and impactful story beats, with less quote unquote filler type episodes which still happen in these live action shows. In addition, I think the main issue with the show is how little they did to progress the overall story within each episode, and made us as an audience think that the next episode the following week was going to show us that looming threat or some big plan, which never really happened, and kept delaying the inevitable attack on Boba and his land in Mos Espa. Not only that, but the flashbacks are tedious and not enjoyable, to keep cutting away from the present time and day, which makes it more confusing and heavily disjointed from the whole plot in general. This led to the numerous amount of back-to-tank scenes, which slows the pacing of the show and does not allow for proper storytelling and just a throwaway whenever Boba is really tired or sore, he goes to the back-to-tank and audience sit through a whole completely different story. That doesn't tie in the past to present, due to his actions in present time being a poor leader compared to his strong family tribe with the Tuscans. In terms of the show's best episode, it had to be universally episode 5 with the Mandalorian and Luke and Grogu. This in itself just shows they really didn't need to add a cameo as such or rush the storyline with Grogu and Mando in a show about Boba Fett. This just does not exude confidence in the show's structure and storyline which was created for Boba. Ultimately, taking away from Boba's story and just having a filler Mandalorian episode which featured action, storyline, well-written dialogue, and good CGI scenes with Luke compared to the Book of Boba Fett's neutral colours and cheesy dialogue with rushed CGI. It just doesn't give strong story and structure to these episodes, which ultimately leads for a lackluster story that isn't as enjoyable as it could have been. To start us off on the final section, this is my most critical side to any show and or movie, whether it be Star Wars or not. I personally believe the cinematography and filmmaking is just as crucial as the acting, and this show proved this to me. Robert Rodriguez, I loved your work on Spy Kids. If you're listening to this, but come on man, what the hell is up with you and having random tacky oversaturated things in all works that you do, such as the biker gang? It just doesn't fit in this Star Wars property of a desert planet of Tatooine. I don't want to have to mention this, but if you're doing a chase scene, make it look fast at least. What is up with this snail pace, choppy, unrealistic cuts, and so many scenes with them walking in Tatooine feel so dead and so fake and untrue to the threat that Boba used to pose without saying a word? Yes, Star Wars is fictional, but with the budget you have and the show like Andor and Mandalorian with amazing cinematography, which places you within the scene, and then to compare to this tacky-looking Boba Fett show is so harmful to my eyes. The camera movements and lack of colour leads the show to an unrealistic world it's trying to build, and does not help us as the audience to feel like a real environment, more just like a prop set with little to no detailing in anything. This was the most visible in the final battle in Mos Espa. It's more frustrating really that Disney Star Wars can go from amazing visual content and filmmaking in Rogue One and even The Mandalorian and the sequel movies. They all had amazing camera angles and shots with filled-in environments to make it feel more normal and not out of place, compared to Tatooine that looks so boring and drab. The dialogue falls under filmmaking and in my perspective, so why the hell are you making Boba Fett a talkative character? This makes him look so inferior and not imposing when every 2 seconds you need to have him remove his helmet. Like, am I crazy? Or how was this even passed in the storyboard scripting room? I know for a fact this is just not my opinion, but the actor of Boba Fett himself, Tamora Morrison, stated that I speak far too much, and this was his opinion about even the first 2 episodes of Dialogue with Boba. It's really just sad to see how we have filmmakers and writers creating these shows with little to no recognition of how impactful these characters are to us, and how essential it is for them to succeed, and Star Wars as a whole to succeed. To briefly conclude, this show was disappointing to me due to the numerous errors I covered earlier. And yes, there are other projects that have done that, and in Star Wars of course, but Boba Fett was someone I loved to see on the screen and read about when he fought Vader and when he was the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy. So when people rewrite him and don't give him the justice he deserves, it just pains me to see how he was massacred. I wish the best for all cast and crew involved with this, but to me, this is not my Boba Fett. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed, it would be much appreciated leaving a quick, easy like. And don't forget, this is just my personal opinion, so if you don't agree, let me know in the comments. I would also like to mention that we are on social media, at Instagram, Spotify, and Facebook, all under Coruscant Nights. And also if you want to help contribute and support us with our podcasting journey, at Patreon, also under Coruscant Nights, that would be much appreciated. Thank you, and may the Force be with you.